this in the morning, and I just said, since it's later in the day, by this time I've already had my milk and my nap.
And your afternoon
And my afternoon nap. But I really don't drink milk and have an afternoon nap. I mean, I could have an afternoon nap. I would love to do that. Hey, but you know what? We love that we're on our social media platforms right now. And we want you to also be prepared. We're going to be on live television and going back and forth. But we want to hear from you. That's why we do this. We want to hear what you're thinking. We want to hear questions from you. Where you're at is also a great thing to always let us know, because that helps us. Because last time someone asked us what the weather was going to be like, and then they didn't say where they were. So I had to guess.
It helps.
And I picked Vegas because I thought Vegas sounded like a fun place.
I've got you on here. Can you?
So I had to guess.
There
that's not good. See, when
I like to have Dr. Jim in stereo.
Oh, that is so dangerous. Anyway, hey, so we're going to be talking here. We're on our social media for the next little bit. At the top of the hour, we're going to be live on television. We're going to have Josh Morgerman on with us today. We're going to be talking some flooding things. We're going to talk about the tropics, obviously, because that's what Josh and I love to do with Doctor in the Dude. And of course, Krista here is moderating everything. She's keeping an eye on those questions that are coming in, and also content, and just kind of everything to keep us on board on where we're supposed to be. So that also lets you know that I need all the help that I can possibly get, but we are certainly having that today. Now, unfortunately, we do have some pretty serious things to talk about. Obviously, the flooding in Central Texas. So we do want to talk about that. We do, and if you have questions about that as well. And for so many people, that tragedy is still just going. It hasn't even begun for a lot of folks, simply because they're trying to find more people, first responders, and all that's going on. So we will be discussing that.
Which we'll be discussing with Minuteman Disaster Response a little bit later in the hour. They're going to be joining us at 40 past to talk about their relief efforts. And this isn't a traditional situation for them. This is a little bit different than what they're used to. But we're going to hear straight from the ground what they're dealing with and how they might have to dodge some more weather this weekend. Unfortunately, it looks like there's more chances for rain out there in southern and central Texas going into Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah, strong showers, not just some little ones, and so that definitely is going to be an issue there too. So we also are going to be talking about the tropics. We just got an updated forecast today from our friends at NCAR, I believe. It was the NCAR forecast, wasn't it? That
the
came out?
2-3 week outlook. That is the Climate Prediction
Climate Prediction Center. See, I always get those two mixed up. Anyway, minor changes in the forecast. Not really a big surprise, and also not a very large change either. So we got that to talk about. And also, meteorologist Jesse is here with us.
Kelly.
Jesse is
over there.
Right now, he's not on camera, but we're going to be checking in with him about weather headlines, what's going on, where the severe weather is, things that need to be aware. So we're taking care of the good things. We're also taking care of the forecast things. And looking forward to interacting with you for the next hour.
Yeah, because we've got a couple of tornado warnings that are in Iowa at this moment. One east, northeast of Des Moines, just southeast of Ottumwa, which saw some flooding and severe weather activity yesterday. So Jesse's going to highlight that on Viper Radar. But as always, keep it scrolling at the bottom of your screen when you join us on air, because that's where all of the latest watches and warnings for your area will be.
That's right. And so we'll be in like 30 seconds, we're going to stop talking for just a few seconds while we're moving over to live television, and then we'll be telling all of our people on television what we're doing and how they can join you on our social media platforms, which is really kind of fun.
And you can be a part of the conversation too. That's the best part about all of this. Talk to Josh, talk to Dr. Jim, talk to me too, if you care. But you have to join us on those social media platforms and watch us live on air. Do you know how to find WeatherNation? That's the easiest question to ask, and here's how.
It's actually really easy.
Yeah, we've got a QR code and everything so that you know exactly where to go and what to do. So Dr. Jim and I will be kind of taking a step back here, and we'll be quiet for a second, but we'll join you live on air in just 5, 4, 3.
Very good at that. With you today this afternoon, and we are going to be also live on all of our social media platforms for this next hour, and we would love to hear from you. Of course, Dr. Jim and Carissa Kloss here. We're going to be kind of running things from the desk here, but we would like to have questions from you about forecast questions. We're going to be talking about a lot of different things. Josh Morgerman is going to be joining us in a little bit. We're going to be talking all things tropical, and so we got a lot going on this hour.
Yeah, just like we've had going on all week this week. Flooding, I think, has been on the forefront of everyone's mind, and it's related to the tropics, which we'll be talking to Josh Morgerman about in just a little bit. But all of that tropical moisture across the country, this time of year, not unheard of, but the extreme events that it feels like we've had night after night, day after day, that feels, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Well, and as we found out, we're going to be talking about this too, that this looks like it was a 1,000-year flood event. And again, how do you prepare for a 1,000-year flood event? I'm not sure. But we'll be talking about things like that as well. So a lot going on with the weather right now. Some of it not so good, but we do need to still talk about it. And some other things are better. We have some changes in the tropical forecast that we'll take. Anything that's less is okay for us when we talk about that a little bit. And that's all coming up in this hour.
Yeah, so stick with us here. And what we want to talk to you about right now is, Jim, we said earlier, not all flooding is created equal. We talked to the Weather Prediction Center, their warning coordination meteorologist, one of the higher up Mets. And he had a lot of really interesting things to say about how we predict massive flooding events like these and how we go through and we think about events this time of year. Is what we've seen over the last week normal? Is it out of the ordinary? And is it just about the rain? Because it's really not.
It's kind of all of those questions, all those answers at once, right? And so it's like you have to look at all of those different things. And so you have to look at topography, the amount of moisture in the atmosphere, the soil conditions, all of those things. And that's what we heard from Dr. Shea. Maybe we should go to that right now and take a listen to what he had to say about this, what now appears to be a 1,000-year flood situation.
Event is also currently being number crunched. Right now, we're seeing that the highest rainfall amounts are about in the order of an annual exceedance rate of about 0.1%. And so that would equate to about a 1,000-year flood. And so those official numbers are still being worked on, but that's on the order of what we're looking at right now.
And one thing I want to say quickly, too, that it doesn't really matter if it's a 500-year flood or a 1,000-year flood. People's lives will never be the same. And so we are very cognizant of that. And we just want to help people as best we can. And a lot of that is just giving them good information so they can make good decisions.
And you know what? We have one of our first questions from Facebook, Danny McGill, joining us and asking what causes a flash flood. And that is a multifaceted answer. Obviously, the easy portion of it is rainfall. But what are the other factors? And we have a graphic to talk about that kind of will help us go through them.
Yeah, and there really is a lot of things. I mean, location is also a big part of that. And so we're talking about the size of the raindrops, the amount of moisture that's in the atmosphere, the time of day can make a difference, and also where you're located. For example, I spent most of my career in Houston, where we'd have flooding all the time and flash flooding, but it's very different, the type of flash flooding that you would have, let's say, in the hill country, because Houston is very flat. And so a whole bunch of rain at once just sort of spreads out, and a lot of people have water rising into their houses, but very seldom do you ever see a wall of water coming into Houston. However, in this situation that we saw, when you have hills and valleys, the valleys are going to get a lot of that focused water. And so it really is site dependent. So if it's very muggy, that makes a big difference.
Right.
And then also just that amount of moisture.
And also, too, you talked about the topography. It's not just the shape of it, but you also have to consider how much rain has fallen before. You don't want too much to the point where the ground is saturated. But what happened in Texas, the extreme drought conditions, if you don't have enough moisture, then that water just runs off. A meteorologist that I worked with previously had the best way of describing it. Have you ever put a sponge directly under the faucet? What happens when you turn the water on full blast? Does the sponge absorb it?
Not really.
No, it runs off and it moves and then it absorbs. So if you think of the ground in southern Texas like that sponge initially, it just ran right off. And unfortunately, with the shape of topography, like you were talking about, then it all went down and funneled right into the Guadalupe Basin.
And it just is another reminder that no matter where you live, you have some type of weather risk or some type of risk. You need to be aware of those things because, I mean, it happens. Things do happen. And the more you are aware, the better decisions you can possibly make. But as we're looking at this video, it's impossible to get ready for something that happens that quickly.
And you know what? We've been talking a lot about a 1,000-year flood. This wasn't the only 1,000-year flood that happened this week. We saw some extremely heavy rainfall rates in Chicago. We saw it in Ruidoso, New Mexico. On the burn scar, that's another thing that can exacerbate flooding issues.
Well, let's talk about tropics. We got to bring in Josh Morgerman.
Right.
Hey, Josh Morgerman, my favorite hurricane hunter. And Josh, as we talk about tropics and tropical flooding, that's a big deal.
Absolutely. Flooding, it's one of the sort of most destructive tools of many hurricanes. And some of the greatest hurricane disasters in American history were actually flood events. Look at Harvey, Category 4 landfall, but what it's going to be remembered for was all of the epic flooding in Houston. The Hurricane Agnes, 1972 in the Northeast. These were big flooding events. So it's something we always have to be mindful of, even when we're talking about the tropics.
And coming up, we're going to be talking more not only about the flooding, we're going to talk more about the tropics with Josh. Don't forget, you can join us on our social media platforms where we will continually be covering for the next hour. We want to hear your questions. We want to have your comments. And Josh is here to answer your questions as well, all here on Weather Nation for the next hour. Okay, we are live on our social media platforms right now. I hear the music in my ear. That always makes me nervous. It feels like
because it's
that's
like
a
I
cue
should be
to us.
talking.
Yeah, that's a cue to us to either not be talking or stop talking.
Yes.
But in this case, so Josh, we were just talking about tropical systems and causing flooding, and like we said, excuse me, we've had that this week.
I know. Josh, too, we talked to you on Sunday about Chantal. Speaking of destructive flooding events and speaking of heavy rainfall, there were widespread 4 to 6 inch totals with Chantal, up to 11 inches or more, and a couple of fatalities there, too. And I think one of the difficult things for people to communicate, forecasters at least, you kind of really focus in on the wind impacts, which is just one of many facets of a tropical system. But we've seen a lot of these major flooding events in a strong storm or not.
Exactly. One of the things that I think is important to emphasize is when you look at a hurricane, it has a sort of a whole arsenal of destructive forces. Wind and storm surge are they're tied to the strength of the hurricane. Generally, the stronger the hurricane, the worse the winds, the worse the storm surge. Rainfall is completely unrelated to the strength of the storm, meaning you can have a very intense hurricane that doesn't have very heavy rainfall, or you can have a sheared, deformed, not very intense tropical storm that brings epic, dangerous rainfall. And so that's something I think it's hard for people to get their heads around that. Chantal was a rainmaker. It was a sheared system. It was not pretty as it came in. It was not a beautiful specimen of a tropical cyclone, but it brought some very, very significant rain totals into South Carolina, into North Carolina, and it created some real issues.
All right, Josh, let's change gears just a little bit now. We were talking tropics. Let's get into the tropical season forecast. And one of the questions that keeps coming up from people around us is that, are we off to a slow season? And that's kind of a loaded question, isn't it?
It's very loaded. So the answer is no, actually not. We are ahead of schedule. Generally, hurricane season doesn't really get going in the Atlantic until around August 10th. And actually, typically, we get to the sea storm in early August. I think around August 3rd it is. Okay, we already just had our sea storm and we're in early July. So we're well ahead of schedule. I think one of the things that makes people think that we're off to a slow start is that we've had a bunch of extremely busy seasons in a row, some of them with very big starts. Like last year, we had Category 5 Beryl in the Caribbean in early July. So it's gotten folks used to early activity, but actually we are ahead of schedule, even though it feels slow to people.
Taking on a kind of an international look as well. I mean, the Eastern Pacific has been active very quickly, and also we've had some activity on the other side of the world in Taiwan.
Yeah, actually, I'm glad you brought this up. Typhoon Danas, which hit Taiwan. I think there's some lessons that I want us to take away from that event. So we had this typhoon, and by the way, a typhoon is a hurricane. It's just what they call it over there. There was this typhoon in the Pacific, and it was supposed to stay in between Taiwan and China and not hit land. Two, it was supposed to stay very weak. Well, the computer models got it wrong. The thing actually plowed onto the west coast of Taiwan, and it rapidly intensified as it approached the coast. So they weren't supposed to get a typhoon, and then all of a sudden, these big cities on the west coast of Taiwan, some of which had 1 million people in them, got plowed by a Category 3 eye wall in the middle of the night. So, cautionary tale for all of us. The computer models and the technologies get better and better, but hurricanes are still, typhoons and hurricanes are still kind of like they're chaotic beasts, and we don't always know what's going to happen, and we always got to keep an eye on them.
And talking about the Eastern Pacific and talking about rapid intensification, I think of the folks in Acapulco, and I think of, it feels like every storm system is just brushing the same area along the coastline. I've got another viewer question for you, Josh. Casper Gregory wants to know, Hurricane Eric this year, you actually were in Mexico for it. Where does that rank in your most intense chases?
That's a great question. And Casper, he stumped me like last time we went live on air. So he was in the doghouse with me for a while. He asked me some difficult question I didn't have the answer to. He's back on my good side now, asking easier questions. So I would say Eric is definitely in my top 10. Very strange storm. Came ashore on the south coast of Mexico in a very rural area where we don't have radar and all kinds of other tools. So I kind of didn't know what was coming in. What came in was a very small but extremely violent hurricane. Very scary. And I have to say I was quite surprised by it. So it was up there for me. Folks are seeing how fast, how many hurricanes and cyclones we've had in the Eastern Pacific off Mexico. It's actually kind of normal. Early summer, you get a lot of them. It's almost like a sausage factory of hurricanes on that side. Fortunately, most of them just move out to sea. That one, unfortunately, slammed the coast.
Yeah, it certainly has been pretty active. Hey, let's take a second, and we're going to talk to meteorologist Jesse Kelly, and he's going to give us an update on what's going on with our weather and the headlines at this point. Jesse, what do you got for us?
Well, we're focusing on weather stories all across the country, Dr. Jim and Carissa, and as we go through the east and the central and the western United States, out east, the big story is just how muggy it is. We have more of those daily thunderstorm chances in your forecast, but where the active weather will be for the rest of our Friday is going to be across the central United States. So I'll get to you, show you the outlook. And then out to the west, building heat. Temperatures in the 90s and 100s. Now, coming up later on this hour, I have a graphic of showing you where some cities have seen more 100-degree days compared to cities that you're probably more accustomed of for areas down to the south. Show you that later on this hour. But I do want to show you some of the scenes that we had on yesterday. This is from Atlantic, Iowa. You can see some of the heavy rain and some of the strong winds. And some of these areas here around Atlantic, which is, I believe, near the Des Moines area, could see yet another round of severe weather and more heavy rain. Speaking of heavy rain, we had quite a bit of flooding across Norfolk, Nebraska on Thursday. And more flooding could be a concern as we head into Friday, too. Here's the outlook for Friday. Again, we are looking at that enhanced risk. The greatest threat for thunderstorms will be across Iowa, Missouri, back over towards Chicago. That's where we also have an active watch in place, too. And as Chris mentioned earlier, those watches and warnings are always scrolling at the bottom of the screen. We'll do a Viper update, let you know some of the tornado warnings that are ongoing across eastern Iowa. Also have a watch down into Kansas City. But again, we are watching those thunderstorms out there along this cold front. So it'll be a very active day for the rest of your Friday across Central Plains. But out west, though, it's hot and it's dry. And again, we have to make sure that we're keeping heat safety in the back of our mind, too, as we're looking at those temperatures in the 90s and 100s. And Dr. Jim and Carissa, as we again go on later on this hour, we're going to talk a bit more about how some areas, like, for example, out near Medford, out into Boise, have seen more 100-degree days compared to areas across the Gulf Coast.
You know, that reminds me of the opposite of this when Josh Morgerman, you were getting 9 inches of snow on the Gulf Coast when in the Northeast they were getting nothing. So, you know what? It just shows us anything can happen.
Well, and it's also a good reminder that there's different conditions. So, for example, when we have a lot of heat on one side of the country, you tend to have cold on the other side because the way the atmosphere is a river. If you continually think of the atmosphere as more of a river or an ocean, it makes a lot more sense because as it undulates up, it brings warm air. As it comes down from the north, it brings cold air. And depending on the time of year, it's either super hot air or not so cold air, and so it just sort of depends. But right now, where we see the biggest collision is up there around Chicago, toward the Midwest, and that's why we have that enhanced risk there.
I've got another question for Josh coming in from Dawson on our Facebook page. Has a hurricane ever caught you off guard? Or have you ever been in a situation where you questioned your intentions in going there and said, wait a minute, why did I do this?
Why do I do this every time? 81 times now? 81 times.
81 times. No, it's a great question. And yes, that's actually, I'm going to be honest, it's happened many times. There have been several hurricanes where while I was in the thick of it, if I could have pressed a magic button to get safely back home in that instant and miss the rest of the storm, I would have pressed it because that's how out of control it seemed. So yes, that happens. And that comes with this lifestyle of hunting down these storms and trying to get inside them, trying to measure them. It's dangerous work. Hurricanes are unpredictable. And yeah, many, many times. And in fact, that my last chase that we were just talking about, Hurricane Eric in the south coast of Mexico, that was one of those storms where it really caught me off guard. No fault of anyone's but my own. The warnings were out there and everything else, but I personally underestimated the storm and I found myself in a very dangerous situation.
If you've ever wondered where we came up with the name Doctor and the Dude for the segment that we do together, it was because when Josh and I were first getting to know each other, and the very first thing I said to him, I went, dude, you 79 hurricane, dude. I just kept saying dude, and it was born, Doctor and the Dude. That's how it came from because you just impressed me every single time. I don't know if that's good or not, but it's impressive. It really is impressive.
Well, and yeah, and you're braver than both of us, so we can sit here and armchair quarterback all we want, but you're the one who's out there.
I've lived through enough hurricanes. I'm just not running into them anymore. I never ran it. Anyway, but you are the man. Definitely are the man.
Is 0, and I'm going to keep it that way in any way possible. Anyway,
we're about to go back to TV, aren't we?
Yes, here in about 2 minutes, we are going to be live on air as well as live here on our social media platforms. And Josh is going to be sticking around just to give you an idea of what we're going to be talking about. We're going to get into the forecast because long-range models, which I know are Josh's favorite this time of year to keep an eye on, they have been indicating and hinting at maybe a little bit of something here or there. But this graph, I love the "we are here" portion of this graphic.
This is where we are.
Because this is the mountain we are about to climb. And Josh will be joining us to talk a little bit more about what, if anything, is expected here in the next week or two.
Well, and it's also kind of funny. I mean, it happens every year. In July, things slow down a little bit. We've got all that Saharan dust. We've got all kinds of things that are going on, and then it ramps up. But also keep in mind, too, the basin for the Atlantic Basin is huge, and so you can't just think of it as an East Coast or a Gulf Coast thing. I mean, you've got all of the Atlantic, you've got the Caribbean, you have huge amounts of areas, and so just because it becomes active doesn't mean it's going to be active in your backyard, but it's the same on the opposite end of that is just because it's not active right now doesn't mean you're not going to get one hurricane going in the wrong place. And so we're always talking out of both sides of our mouth with this time of year when it talks about being prepared, tropically speaking, and so we're going to be talking about that too.
Mm-hmm. And Josh, we have a little less than a minute left before we go back on live. What is the thing that you look at most? What's your favorite long-range model when looking at tropical forecasts?
Oh, that's really that's a loaded question. I would say my two favorite, my treasured, my two babies that I love equally is the GFS. And I'm going to get a lot of heat for that, but I really am a big believer in the GFS. It does give me a lot of advanced notice, despite having a lot of false positives. and then the Euro ensembles. And those two together, I think, make a complete meal for me as I try to look at what's coming down the pipe.
Good answer, Josh. We are now going to just be silent for a few moments here as we switch back over to live TV. So stay with us all, and we'll be right back with Josh. We are live, and we've got all kinds of things we're talking about this hour. So we're going to be live not only on television. We want everyone to know that we're also on our social media platforms, and we would like to hear from you. We want your questions. We want to know what you're thinking about. We also want to know where you're at as well. Joining me right now here at the desk is meteorologist Carissa Kloss. She's kind of running things. She's keeping track of what's happening on the social media side of things. Meteorologist Jesse Kelly is over in the command center. He's going to give us updates on what's happening with the actual weather right now. And of course, our favorite hurricane hunter, Josh Morgerman, is also here to discuss more about the tropics. Josh, let's talk about the forecast. Today's been kind of an interesting day. We have an updated forecast from our friends at Colorado State University. Why don't you tell us what we're looking at? What's the change? What's different?
Yeah, so folks might consider this good news. It's very mild good news. So the Colorado State University hurricane season forecast, they have an update at the beginning of July. It just came out. And what they did is they actually ticked the forecast down slightly. Each number, whether it's tropical storms, hurricanes, or majors, went down one. So basically, before they were saying an above normal season, now they're saying normal to above normal, maybe just a hair above normal. Just to summarize it, a lot of the factors are pretty neutral. As sea surface temperatures in the Gulf and the Caribbean, they're above normal, but not as much as they've been in past seasons. The Enzo state, whether it's El Nino or La Nina, is neutral. What it's come down to is there's been some unexpectedly strong shear over the Caribbean, wind shear, and that sort of correlates to slightly depressed activity. So they've ticked those numbers down just a little bit. But I should point out it should still at least be a normal season, if not more.
You know, it's interesting how you say that because, we've had El Nino years where the water temperatures are warmer, La Nina, things are cooler, and it does seem to be somewhere in the middle. And when it's in the middle like that, it's questionable. I mean, yeah, we could be slightly above average, we could be slightly below, but honestly, for anybody at home, what we've just talked about really doesn't mean anything for you and your level of being prepared for this season.
I'm so glad you said that, Dr. Jim, because I actually tell sort of like the ordinary people, ignore the season forecast because it doesn't matter. We could have an extremely busy season where there's like a ton of hurricanes, but they still all stay out in the Atlantic. And then we could have a really slow season where just one hurricane hits the U.S., but it is a doozy. I think back to 1992, Hurricane Andrew, Category 5 in the suburbs south of Miami. That was a slow year. 1983, Hurricane Alicia smashed the Houston metro area. That was a dead year. So dead years can still bring, intense impacts, and very busy years can spare us. The point is, we always have to be ready.
And we were just going to show you also the temperatures in the Gulf at this hour, at this time. You know, it's hot no matter how you look at it, okay? We look at these temperatures, it's bath water, okay? But it's not that unusual at this point. And the other thing you have to consider too is not just the actual temperature at the surface, how deep this is going. That also is a big factor in the creation of tropical systems and keeping them going. And so obviously, I mean, it's warm. It's always going to be warm, and we're just going to have to watch that closely, and we'll see how things develop.
I have another question coming in from our viewer. Pam in South Carolina on YouTube wants to know if we'll see another cyclone live from the new Hurricane House, which I'm guessing, Josh, you're probably live from the Hurricane House right now, but I think she's referencing when Dr. Jim was able to go there and see it. I fear, though, that the only way this might happen is if a hurricane comes to the Hurricane House.
Does that mean I have to go to his house if there's a hurricane? Is that the question? Because I'm probably going to say no. I'm going to say no to that if I don't have to. Although, I'll tell you what, if I have to go through a hurricane, Josh, the iHurricane House, that's where I would want to be because you have really done some things. Maybe just briefly explain a little bit of what you've done that makes your house actually not a good place, but a good place to be if you have to go through a storm.
Yeah, I'm in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi, just a block from the Gulf, and it is, literally right on the front row for any intense hurricanes coming in. So I had to build a house that was one, high enough to escape storm surge, at least usually, and also that is wind resistant. And just with the materials that I built it with and the way the house is engineered, it can withstand some pretty intense wind, and I would feel confident riding out a big hurricane in it. Now, I just want to add, Dr. Jim, if you can't come, maybe Carissa can get her feet wet and learn about what a hurricane is like. I was thinking.
She doesn't like humidity. I'll tell you right now, she's thinking, wait a minute, not even the hurricane, the humidity would be a problem.
Is it sad that I would rather be there for the 9 inches of freak snowfall than if a hurricane was hitting it? I am a landlocked state kind of girl, Midwestern, born and bred. I'm the opposite. But you know what? I severe weather is a little bit more my speed, which sounds crazy that I would rather. I feel like I could navigate a tornado better than I could navigate a hurricane. But you know what? If I were there with you, Josh, I would just follow you around and probably pray most of the time. But you know what? I know that we would come out the other side. And a quick question as well from Facebook. With the warmth in the subtropical Atlantic, how will that influence the Bermuda High? Have either of you had a chance to look at the Bermuda High as things have been shaping up and we get into kind of what's normal for this time of year?
Well, for one thing, we know that the Bermuda High moves as the season draws along. And sometimes, and in fact, that's actually a really good question, because that will drive those storms right into either into the Gulf or the Caribbean or into the U.S. for that matter. So, but I honestly haven't looked at it that much, at least at this point anyway, because we haven't had anything developed. Josh, have you seen anything? We got about 30 seconds left.
That felt like a Dr. Jim question, and it was a very good one because the position of that Bermuda High is the whole ball game in terms of what we get in the United States.
And right now, it's out there quite a ways, and so it's in a good spot for us at the moment. All right, well, stay with us. Go over to our social media platforms and join us as we continue this discussion with Josh as well. Click on the QR code and find your favorite social media. Okay. After all of that, we're back live on our social media platforms, and so all of you on social media, you get to have more fun with us while everybody on television, they're missing out.
Yeah, let's bring Josh Morgerman back in too so we can get in our final questions and ask him. Josh, what I want to know is, do I get to put my own questions in?
Please, especially if it's for Josh.
Is there one thing that preparation-wise you haven't done this year that you're like, oh man, because I have to admit, you're still a real person. And I can ask this of Dr. Jim too, because I know he is probably the most prepared person I've ever met for any weather disaster. But what's the one thing that maybe you forget? And maybe if I could just bring you guys back to earth and make you humans like us. What have you forgotten, or what have you like, I better go do that and I better do it now because Carissa's calling me out on air about it?
No, such a good question. Such a good question. So I'm pretty much ready to go in terms of my house and how I fortified it and everything else. But what I've not done, which I really need to look into and get into, is getting a generator. That's something that's really important to me, to be self-sufficient and able to help others after a hurricane passes and after, we don't have power and stuff like that. I would like to, have my home be functional and everything else, and just to be in that position to get communications out and also to help my neighbors. So that's something I'm looking into this year, is getting set up with the proper generator.
Wow, that's a big one. That is a good one. Also, just deciding on the type of generator and the size for your house, and all those things, and of course, doing it before, thinking about it before the storm comes and not as a reactionary thing. Hey, and I'll answer this question too, Carissa.
Yeah,
okay?
please do.
There's one thing that I have not done yet that I need to do. I need to update all of my snacks. Okay,
Yes.
every one of my go bags.
That
so
means
in
we
my
get
family,
to have a hurricane snack party here at WeatherNation and eat all the snacks.
In all of our bags, I have 2 bags of snacks, and I mean, full on, gallon-sized
Ziploc
things
bags,
of snacks
yeah.
with stuff that we like. I mean, Reese's Pieces, beef jerky, things like that that'll last. And then whatever my family likes too. My wife likes Jelly Bellies and those kinds of things, and granola bars and things. So, but anyway, so I update it, And every 6 months, then when we get the old stuff and put it out, it's not old yet. It's in my office, and everybody comes and eats it. So
I'm going to call it out. This sounds like indulgent behavior charading a storm preparation.
absolutely. But you know what? You're right. You are absolutely right. But Josh, here's the reason why. Okay, when you're at that moment, and you know what it's like when you're in a hurricane and everything's going wrong, and you're just sitting there. You go, "What have I done to myself?" If I have some Oreos, I am going to be a happier
Gonna be a better
person.
But no, because if I remember correctly, Josh, when you are in a hurricane and you're hunting a hurricane, you can only have what's like on your back, right? And I may or may not have made fun of you about just eating nuts and seeds and crackers.
He's a bear. Nuts and berries.
Because he has to like train for hurricane season, right? Like you can't just go out there and eat empty calories and sugar because you may not always necessarily know where your next meal is going to come from.
There's that, and also when I'm hunting a hurricane, I have no appetite at all. It's pure like adrenaline drip for me. So I don't even do nervous eating during a hurricane or when I'm on a hunt. I have to force myself to eat. I have to remind myself to get calories. So my pattern's a little different. Now after the hurricane, then I'm crazy hungry. But up to and in it, I don't need like anything.
You know, I get it. You know, I get it. And also, that's just for my go bag. You know, I have all kinds of things besides that.
And Pam on YouTube
Okay, Pam.
has a question. She
All right.
said, you know what, let's talk go bags.
Okay.
Let's talk, because there's different probably things you have to think of, like, okay, how long am I going to need to have this stuff ready and available? Because if you have snacks, how long is that going to last you? And outside of snacks, what do you need to have?
Okay, so here we go. All right. So
Give me your top three.
In my go bag. So first of all, when you go camping, what do you take? You take a carload of stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
A carload to go camping overnight. Well, guess what? You're going to need all of that if you are having to evacuate or something like that. So my go bags, I learned long ago, I need them to be as big as camping things. And so, it's in my office.
Yeah.
It's a backpack, like a camping one, not gigantic, but it's big. I have 3 days of food, of freeze-dried meals in there. So that's, 3 per day. I've got my 2 bags of snacks. I have a very, very small stove, but it's very effective because all I need to do is warm the water to put into my into my food that I need. And then I have like some medicines. All of these things are separated into small bags. So I have the medicines that I might need, including Tylenol PM, because if I'm evacuating and it's going to be a hard time sleeping and I know I'm going to have a headache, those kinds of things. And so I have all those things separated into my bag. And every one of my family has the same bag. They may have their own different snacks, but they have the same tools, the same things, so that I know when I go to that bag, I know what's in there. And I realize I take it to the nth degree.
I told you that he was the most prepared person I've ever met. Josh, your top 3 go bag items. Go. Maybe.
Dr. Jim, his brilliance in this area eclipses all of it. I can't compete. And Dr. Jim, seriously, in all seriousness, you're a role model for being ready. My go bag, I tend to keep things really light because a lot of my hunting is international. So basically, I stock up on supplies when I land somewhere, and all of the things that I must bring are sort of like technology and equipment related. But the one thing I'll say is wherever I am, the one thing I always prioritize is water. I don't even worry about food as much as just making sure I have water, because that's what we really, really need to survive.
And honestly, that's in my go bag. I have 3 separate ways that I can purify water, because you can't carry very much.
Well, because water's heavy.
Yeah, it is heavy. So depending on the situation that I'm in, is it really dirty water? Is it, what am I dealing with? And so I have different things that are very, very light, and it doesn't have to be expensive either. And by the way, the reason why I try to be so prepared, I've had to be, all right? I mean, I've lived these storms. I have been in the hurricanes. I have been in the ice storms where we lost power. I was in Mount St. Helens, the volcano, as a child. A teenager. And so I have experienced this. I lived growing up in Los Angeles. I went through some of the biggest earthquakes that they've ever had. So I'm a walking disaster wherever I've been. I've been through all of these things.
Sorry.
And so that's why, because I've lived those things and I know if I don't have that before, you're not ready.
Right.
And then you see all these people after a hurricane or something, it's a problem. And I don't want to be somebody where I have to go to the store if I just want to go to the store and look at all the people who are suffering.
All right.
Dr. Jim,
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to Josh Morgerman for joining us for this. And don't worry if you didn't get a chance to ask your question or you want more Josh, there's always more available. Don't worry. iCyclone on all social media platforms. And next Wednesday morning, we're going to do this all over again at 9 a.m. Eastern.
Yep. So, Josh, thanks for joining us today. I mean, we could go on and on. It's funny how we do these segments and literally we go, what happened? Where did the time go?
Yes, but for right now, we want to toss things over to meteorologist Jesse Kelly so he can get us up to date on what's happening right now. Jesse?
Yeah, well, Krista, we are following severe weather that's ongoing right now across areas of Iowa, Wisconsin, out into areas of Illinois. If you're watching WeatherNation on yesterday evening, these were the same areas where we were looking at active weather and flash flooding. We do have an active tornado watch across this area until 8 p.m. local time. It does include areas of Iowa, Wisconsin, Illinois, severe thunderstorm watch down towards Missouri. That remains in effect until 10 p.m. local time. But the strongest of the thunderstorms are now moving away from Des Moines, but we are tracking severe thunderstorms and some strong winds. So for areas out towards Cedar Rapids, we are looking at severe thunderstorms headed your way right now. A warning is in effect until 4 o'clock local time. These thunderstorms will be capable of producing the damaging winds and the large hail. Now, we're going to be bouncing in between radars from out of Des Moines and also out of Davenport. And again, you can just see that the winds are rather strong. We're also seeing some areas of some large hail too. So for example, near LaPorte City, we're seeing hailstones potentially up to the size of ping pongs, which is 1.5 inches thick. And we also could be seeing some strong winds near Benton, maybe up to about 65 to 70 miles an hour. As we continue to push more towards the east, we are tracking a flash flood warning and a tornado warning across areas of Iowa and Wisconsin. So turn on the local La Crosse radar. Now we're looking a little bit far away, but you can still see some details here. Tornado warning for areas between Darlington and Jamestown, Grant, Lafayette County, 4:15 local time, as we are watching some areas of rotation. Now the rotation is very broad, but earlier is a little bit tighter, just for areas towards the east of Jamestown, but as the circulation has now moved more towards the east, into Lafayette County, the rotation has weakened some. But nevertheless, though, if you're watching us in this part of western Lafayette County, make sure that you are getting to your place of shelter immediately. Tornado warning remains in effect until 4 o'clock local time. And also, heavy rain is ongoing too. Check out some of these rainfall amounts that we're seeing across this part of the country. In the last 12 hours, we have seen quite a bit of rain. That's why we're concerned for the threat for flooding, as some of these areas are seeing quite a bit of rain. So, for example, near Waterloo, we have seen as much as 3.5 inches in the last 12 hours. In the last 24 hours, we were tracking some of that heavier rain back into northern Illinois. So as these thunderstorms continue to push more towards the east, especially back into northern Illinois around Rockford, out towards areas west of Chicago. We've already seen a lot of heavy rain on yesterday evening. We will see the potential for more heavy rain as we go into this evening. So let's look at what's happening right now in Viper Radar. Let's go ahead and rejoin Dr. Jim and Krista with the latest on what's going on right now. And of course, guys, we will continue to keep a close eye on these severe thunderstorms out there as one of our big stories. And also, we're going to talk a little more about more of that heavy rain that's going across areas of Texas too.
Thank you, Jesse. We're going to bring in Eric Burks, who's the Executive Director at Minuteman Disaster Response. And Eric, just so you know, we're on our social media platforms at the moment. In just a few minutes, in 3 minutes, as a matter of fact, we're going to be switching over to our television, so we're on TV as well as on our social media platforms.
And Eric is part of Minuteman Disaster Response, who we've been following as they have deployed to the Texas flooding event. Eric, can you tell us where you're at real quick in 30 seconds or less?
Sure. We're in Hunt, Texas, which is just down the road from Kerrville, actually upstream from it, where we're working and supporting the recovery efforts in that area.
All right, and can you tell us quickly how people can help Minuteman as we go on air here in just a minute? I know that there are so many people trying to figure out ways to help. How can they help Minuteman Disaster Response?
Sure. The two primary ways are really to either give or serve. We've got, volunteers in the field and always need additional volunteers. But the other thing is fueling the mission by financial support is the other part that they can do to keep us in the field.
All right, Eric, we're going to we're going to stop for just a second here. We're going to be switching on to our television side of things, but where we'll be live on TV as well as on social media. So everybody on social media, hold on just for a second. We're going to bring in our TV people, and we'll be right back with you in about 10 seconds. Welcome back to Weather Nation. This afternoon, we are live not only on television, but on all of our social media platforms. That QR code is your key to join us on social media, where we've been on for the last, 40 minutes or so, where you can ask us your questions, your comments, and we've been actually having some pretty good questions coming in from our viewers.
Some great questions, and so much of it is revolving around the flooding that we've seen in the last week. We've seen it in Ruidoso, New Mexico, North Carolina. We saw places in Chicago and Boston, but obviously nothing as devastating and life-altering as what we saw in Texas.
Yeah, that's right. So joining us right now from Minuteman Disaster Response is Eric Burks. He's an executive director. And Eric, you're on the ground in Texas. Maybe you could tell our viewers where you're at and what you're seeing at this point today.
Sure. So we're in Hunt, Texas, which is just upriver from Kerrville, a few miles. And our team there is assisting in the recovery process. Tree and debris removal is something that we do regularly after natural disasters. But in this case, we're supporting teams in the field, removing that tree and debris so the search can go on for anything that needs to be found along those riverbanks.
And Minuteman Disaster Response, you respond to all kinds of disasters, but as you just mentioned a second ago, this is a unique situation. Maybe you could explain why this is unique compared to other types of disasters that you respond to.
Sure. Like I said, tree and debris removal is a big part of what we do after hurricanes, tornadoes, and even floods. This one is being handled much differently because they are looking for remains as they go through these debris fields. It's done very carefully and methodically. The use of dog teams and law enforcement and a lot of different assets are in the field, just meticulously combing through these debris fields along the riverbanks and several hundred yards out from those riverbanks in some cases.
And a lot of everything that you do with your group is volunteer based. That are trained to know what to do. So maybe explain a little bit about that process to prepare your people for what they're dealing with on site.
Sure. So training is a big part of what we do, and having the competencies in heavy equipment operation. We have a compact track loader with a grapple. We've got people with chainsaws to help break that down. But as stated, it's a very different, this type of a search and recovery is not what we normally do. This is very different for our team. And is unique and presents obviously some challenges and is somewhat emotionally draining for our team that's out there assisting these professionals in their search.
So as you mentioned, this has been going on now. This has been a week that this has been going on. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about the feelings that are there. The emotion obviously is still very, very high. And just how do you cope under the situation that you're dealing with at this point?
Sure. It's a very emotionally wrought time with, people are hoping to find something while simultaneously very much hoping that they do not find anything. And the professionals are doing that part of it. We're just supporting and helping remove those trees and debris so that they can really get into all of the places that, there may be something to be found. So very different, very unique, but also very heart-wrenching and emotional.
And Eric, as you look ahead into the next week, what are the plans for your team? Because does it then change to more of that response to people who might need their homes clean, or are you still just going wherever you're called?
Yeah, so we still plan to go wherever we're called at this point. At some point, if that the search and recovery operation winds down, then we'll shift to the normal tree and debris or the muck and gut of flooded homes. Simultaneously, we also have a team in San Angelo, Texas. There were a large number of homes flooded there. Fortunately, it was not as violent. It was just water inundation. But nonetheless, those homes need to be cleaned out and dried out as quickly as possible before the mold becomes an issue for them.
Eric, so many people want to help, but they don't know what to do. What can people do, one, to help Minutemen disaster response, but also just to help in general?
Sure. So really, from our perspective, to either serve, join, and volunteer, or to give to help support their operations in the field. We'll have teams out probably in both locations for several weeks, as long as there's work to be done. And just running these operations takes a lot of diesel fuel and everything else that goes into running an operation. So those are the two ways: give or serve.
And then another question too is, what people may not realize is that Minuteman, you guys stay there for extended periods of time. You're not just there for a couple of days.
Absolutely, yeah. It's not uncommon for us to be 30 or 60 days at an event, depending upon the scale. You know, a typical tornado is usually 7 to 10 days, depending upon the severity and the length of the path. But hurricanes and larger events, it may be 30, 60 days or more.
And I want to make sure everybody knows how to find you, Eric. It's minutemanresponse.org, correct, is your website. So if they want to figure out a way to give or serve, they can go there.
Absolutely. The website is the best source of information. It's the pathway to volunteering, but it's also got a tab on there to donate if that's what they're called to do.
And we will have a link to that on our website as well, weathernationtv.com. Thank you so much to Eric Burks, who is the Executive Director of Minuteman Disaster Response, joining us from Texas after the incredible and devastating flooding event there just 1 week ago. We're going to be checking in with Minuteman throughout the week, Dr. Jim, and we're going to be talking more to meteorologist Jesse Kelly in just a bit about our top weather stories if you join us on social media.
But you got to go on social media. If you don't have it, QR code, that's the key. And then go to your favorite social media, look for WeatherNation TV, and you're there.
Excellent. Very good. Thank you.
Much, Eric. And thank you to everyone joining us on social media currently. As we just kind of wrap things up here, before we do, we promise some top stories, and we've got quite a few active thunderstorms out there.
That means Jesse Kelly is up. So Jesse, give us the lowdown on the rundown.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit more about thunderstorms. And also, before we go back to Jim and Chris, we also want to talk a little bit more about the heat, because that's also going to be a big story that we're following, especially out towards the west. But again, we're still looking at some active thunderstorms across the areas of Iowa, Wisconsin. We still have active severe thunderstorm warnings, tornado warnings, and also, as I mentioned earlier, that this hour that we're starting to see flooding starting to increase too. The grounds are very saturated across the areas of Iowa, just with the thunderstorms that we had on yesterday. And we're starting to see more thunderstorms moving on in. We have two brand new flash out warnings, one for the city of Waterloo until 6:45 local time. Also watching another flash out warning just to the west of Cedar Rapids, also until, this will be until 7:30 local time. And just check out some of the rain that we have seen across some of these areas in the last 6 hours. And just towards the east of Waterloo, we have picked up about 5 inches of rain. So again, the grounds are very saturated, and with more rain to come, that could lead to more flooding. So be watching out for that. Also looking at more scattered thunderstorms that are ongoing across areas of Missouri, down towards Illinois. But as I did promise, though, that we are looking at rain and some thunderstorms across areas of Texas. So we are looking at scattered thunderstorms from San Antonio towards Houston. Some of this is sea breeze thunderstorms. There's everything continue to push more up towards the north across areas between Dallas and over towards Shreveport. And then across areas of the southeast, we're also looking at more of those scattered thunderstorms from areas around Jackson, Birmingham, Montgomery. Also looking at a few areas of severe thunderstorms out there across the upstate of South Carolina over into western North Carolina. So we're looking at those scattered thunderstorms there, just your typical summertime thunderstorms out there. And then across the areas of the west, again, we are looking at a whole lot of nothing, but temperatures this way are very, very toasty. And we're looking at temperatures currently across the southwest, currently into some of the triple digits out here. But we will see some of that heat beginning to push more towards the northwest over the next couple of days. That large area of high pressure builds on in. And this is a great segue to what I mentioned earlier. As you look at some of the cities and some of the 100-degree days that we are seeing this summer, and as we bring in Dr. Jim and Carissa, so earlier, we were talking about earlier how, the weather patterns are very important this time of the year. And as we bring in Jim and Carissa right now, we are, there we go.
We are here.
There we go.
There we are.
All right, so two things here. So today is 7-Eleven Day.
I know, it's July 11th, 7-Eleven.
Yes.
That sounds like a commercial to me.
Yes, so I do have my Slurpee with me. I've been drinking
There
it.
it is.
I've been drinking it off screen. You may have noticed that my mouth, my tongue.
Yeah,
Where is
what
it?
flavor did you get, Jesse?
I got red and blue. I love red and blue, and it's together.
Together. See, I usually go for like a soda flavor, like a Coke and a cherry, and get like a cherry Coke. I haven't got mine yet though, because I have to pick up my kids at camp. I couldn't get one without them. I've got to take them to go get it. But that's the perfect way to stay cool when you're talking about 35, 100-degree days in Phoenix.
Yeah, it's been very hot there. But one thing that I was very shocked about so far this summer, and also I guess it goes back to just how wet things have been across the South. Areas like Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, they have yet to see temperatures above 100 degrees. Yeah. But across the Northwest are areas like Medford, Boise, and then earlier this summer into New York City. We've already seen 2 to 4 times the temperatures over 100 degrees. And out west, it's going to get hot yet again as high pressure begins to build back towards the Northwest. And we also have heat alerts building across areas like Medford, now Eugene, Portland. Also have heat advisories across areas of eastern Washington too. So as we head towards next week, we're going to see those temperatures into the 90s and 100s. And I know that in this part of the country, a lot of us don't have adequate AC. So next week, maybe a good time during the hottest part of the day. Maybe check out your local library, go to the shopping mall, especially during the hottest part of the day, to where you can find ways to stay cool. And down towards Medford again, guys, it's going to be temperatures 103, 104. And, of course, this time of the year, I know I'm always coming here to complain about the heat. And I want to say something great about the heat. And the only thing about the heat that I can say is that at least it's sunny outside.
It is.
Okay.
And we have a massive cold front coming next week. So when we started putting that
some of
one in the forecast and we started talking about that one in the newsroom, that's the exact same dance that Jesse did downstairs.
I have a confession to make, by the way.
What's your confession?
I have never had a Slurpee.
I'm out. How is that possible? How is that physically possible?
I don't know. That's why I didn't even know that the 7-Eleven thing existed until you told me yesterday. Did I not say I had never known about it? And you looked at me. I mean, by the way, she looks at me like that a lot, okay? Usually once or twice a day, she's like, what is wrong with you? And I know there's a lot to that question. I have never had a 7-Eleven Slurpee.
And about 10 minutes ago, you called yourself a walking disaster on TV for other reasons. I think he meant a walking disaster response professional expert, but close enough.
Look, they wanted us to interact with our friends on social media. Mm-hmm. That's what you get, all right? You're going to get the real me, and so now you know. So I guess I got to go to 7-Eleven today.
Yes.
But I'm nervous.
Yes.
I'm nervous to go in by myself, I'll be honest, because I was like, it's a different kind of machine. Look, they don't let me touch anything here that is a machine or a camera or anything at all. And you want me to walk into a 7-Eleven, go up to that crazy machine with the big old handle?
Yep.
Disaster. I am telling you right now, that's a disaster.
Well, Dr. Jim, if that's going to be a disaster, that means that you got to get a large cup so you can leave lots of
make
room.
a bigger mess.
Lots of room for error.
Okay, good to know. I may just go with Carissa and the kids. I'll be honest.
That's true. You'll just line up. You'll be the third one, and it'll be fine.
I am the third kid.
We'll make sure. Breaking. Dr. Jim has never had a Slurpee.
We're out of time, my friends. This has been fun, and I can't wait to see the comments about all of this as well. Hey, by the way, we're doing it again Wednesday morning. So just keep that on your radar. We'll be talking about that too. Be safe, be kind to each other, and have a great weekend, my friends.